Susan never imagined her 50s would involve chugging dandelion tea, a Bondi herbal workshop run by a barefoot hippie named Moonbeam. But here she was, clutching a chipped mug painted with koalas, sweating through another hot flash while strangers extolled roasted root virtues. Sydney summer air clung, thick with salt and barbecue smoke from beachgoers feasting below. Moonbeam winked, calling it menopause moonshine. Liquid courage, then. Susan sipped. Bitter. Earthy. Like swallowing a garden. Maybe courage wasn't some. Susan never imagined her 50s would involve chugging ice water between midnight hot flashes, her body staging its own rebellion like a Sydney summer storm, unpredictable, relentless. That chipped sunflower mug from her backpacking days in Byron Bay now held lukewarm dandelion tea, its bitter earthiness a far cry from margaritas she'd once sipped. Beach BBQs. Menopause wasn't just hot flushes. It was forgetting words mid-sentence, knees creaking like unoiled hinges, and a quiet terror that she'd become invisible, fading like a sunset no one paused to watch. Then came flyer for a herbal tea workshop, wedged between bills. Susan hesitated. Since when did she do wellness? But desperation outweighed pride. Inside that steamy room, surrounded by women with silver streaks and laughter lines, she learned to steep roots like rebellion. Dandelion wasn't just a weed, its tenacity mirrored her own. Each sip became a quiet middle finger to societal whispers that women over 50 should shrink. By summer's end, that mug was her anchor. She carried it to balcony sunrises, its warmth steadying her palms as she scribbled plans for a community garden, something messy, alive, unapologetic. Menopause hadn't dimmed her, it had lit a different fire. And Susan? She was just getting started. Creator never imagined her 50s would involve chugging ice water between hot flashes, but Sydney's summer had other plans. One sweltering afternoon, she ducked into a dimly lit apothecary, drawn by a handwritten sign, "Herbal Remedies for Modern Witches." Inside, shelves groaned under jars of roots and petals, their earthy perfume cutting through her fog. A woman with silver braids and a no bad vibes tank top slid a steaming mug toward her. "Dandelion root," she said, as if reading Susan's mind. "Makes hellfire feel like a campfire." She scoffed but took a sip, warm, bitter, weirdly comforting. By week's end, she'd traded midnight sweats for moonlit tea rituals, that chipped sunflower mug becoming her anchor. When flyers for a community herbalism workshop appeared at her local cafe, she hesitated. 50 felt too old for beginner's luck. But remembering how dandelions thrived in cracks, she signed up. Bondi Pavilion, a motley crew of women, some in saris, others in surf leggings, gathered around mortar and pestles. A Maori elder demonstrated how to roast roots without burning them, low and slow, like dating after divorce. She botched her first batch, turning golden petals into charcoal, but group just laughed. "Mate, my first tea tasted like bog water," said a midwife named Lila, nudging her shoulder. Between beach BBQs and sunrise swims, Creator learned to listen, not just to her body's protests, but to its quiet wisdom. She discovered rosemary eased brain fog, while hibiscus lifted her mood better than any pill. That mug, once just a vessel, now held stories, of resilience, of late-blooming joy. By summer's end, she hosted her own workshop in a borrowed garage. Nervous hands fumbled with strainers, but Susan guided them, her voice steady as she poured. "Menopause isn't an ending," she said, watching steam curl toward ceiling. "It's universe saying, now you're lit enough to handle what's next." Outside, dandelions pushed through concrete, their yellow heads nodding in agreement. She never imagined her 50s would involve chugging dandelion tea like some wellness influencer, but here she was, clutching her chipped blue mug like a lifeline. Sydney's summer heat clung to her skin, sticky as regret, while her joints staged a mutiny every time she bent to flip snags on beach barbecue. Menopause hadn't just knocked, it had kicked down door, leaving hot flashes like a surprise sauna session and moods swingier than a toddler on a sugar high. Her first sip of that bitter brew had been a face-puckering disaster, but desperation made a hell of a motivator. Google said dandelion root could tame hormonal circus, and Susan, ever skeptic, figured it couldn't be worse than sweating through another Zoom call mid-flush. She stuck with it, gagging through each cup until her taste buds surrendered. Weeks in, she noticed it, a flicker of calm, a whisper of cool where fire used to rage. Small wins, but enough to make her stubborn enough to push further. Then came Herbal Tea Workshop Community Center, sandwiched between yoga and ukulele lessons. She walked in expecting patchouli and platitudes, but left with hands stained yellow from grinding roots, curiosity lit like a match. Turns out, dandelions weren't just weeds. They were survivors, punching through concrete like middle-aged women punching through stereotypes. That mug became her rebellion, against pity, against invisibility, against idea that hot flashes meant she was done. By summer's end, she'd dragged her skeptical girlfriends to a beach barbecue, passing around steaming cups between shrimp skewers. Tastes like dirt, one groaned. She just grinned. So does growing older, love. But we're still here, aren't we? Mug sat in center of picnic blanket. A quiet middle finger to anyone who thought menopause was end instead of just another damn chapter. Susan sipped, salty wind tangling her hair, and decided 50 tasted bitter, wild, and, against all odds, pretty damn sweet. She never imagined her 50s would involve chugging dandelion tea like some wellness warrior, but here she was, clutching her chipped blue mug like a lifeline. Sydney's summer heat clung to her skin, mocking hot flashes with extra spite. Beach BBQs sizzled nearby, but she had traded sausages for steeped roots, determined to tame menopause without surrendering to hormone hysteria. One evening, after spilling tea down her blouse again, she caught her reflection, wild-haired, grinning like a rebel. Why not own this? Next morning, she signed up for a herbal workshop community center, mug in tow. Skeptical glances followed her, as she set up a display titled Dandelion Rebellion, Menopause, Unapologetic. A few women snickered. One, a polished corporate type, rolled eyes so hard creator half expected an ocular encore. Then, action. She hopped onto a picnic table, ignoring creaky knees, raised her mug like a trophy, and declared, "This isn't just tea. It's a middle finger to hot flashes." Silence. Then laughter. Then applause. Someone snapped a pic. By sunset, her Dandelion Defiance post had gone lit, shared by women from Bondi to Brooklyn. Even Irola approached, grudgingly admitting her night sweats had eased after trying Susan's brew. As twilight painted harbor gold, Susan sipped victory from that trusty mug. 50. More like fierce. This wasn't an ending, it was a start. And menopause? Just another crowd to wow. Susan never imagined her 50s would involve chugging dandelion tea like it was Sydney's answer to kombucha, but here she was, hot flashes dodged, mood swings tamed, and a newfound obsession with turning weeds into wellness. That first sip had been a fluke, a desperate grab sanity during a beach barbecue where sweat and spice fought for dominance. Now, her chipped blue mug, once just a vessel for caffeine, had become a symbol of rebellion against menopause's chaos. She didn't stop sipping. Susan launched a herbal tea workshop in her sunlit garage, guiding women through steeping their own empowerment. Skeptics became converts clutching mason jars, laughing as they traded horror stories over steaming cups. Odd habit? Maybe. But watching a 70-year-old grandma fist pump over no more night sweats was lit. Dandelions, once dismissed as pests, now dotted her garden like gold medals. Susan's teas traveled further, packed in care parcels for shift workers, slipped into yoga studio goodie bags. Even Bloke's local surf club sneaked sips, though they'd never admit it. Menopause hadn't dimmed her, it handed her a megaphone. Every workshop, every shed cuppa, wove threads of a community stronger than any hot flash. That mug. Now a trophy for thriving unapologetically. Steep your comeback, menopause doesn't own kettle.